Hello, my name is Scott Davis. Welcome to New World Birth. This is the weekly neutrino forecast for January 3rd to January 9th of 2016. And this is also the 29th anniversary of Ra Uru Hu's encounter with the voice, which occurred between January 3rd and January 11th of 1987. On January 3rd, we have the sun. You can see it denoted here by this black circle with a dot in it. It's in Capricorn. It's also in the 38th hexagram, and on the outside of the wheel, we have the top mark for the 38, numbered from bottom to top. The 38 goes yang, yang, yin, yang, yin, yang. And then the 38th hexagram is mapped to an opening in an energy channel called a gate. And right here we have the 38th gate of the fighter. Opposition, the ability to preserve individual integrity through opposition to detrimental forces, located in the root center in an individual energy path in the knowing circuit called the channel, a struggle, a design, a stubbornness that connects to the 28th gate of the game player, preponderance of the great, the transitoriness of power and influence. And I've found human design to be amazingly accurate in describing the person that I use it as my primary tool when I provide readings. And we have the following activated gates on January 3rd. We've got the sun in the 38th gate with the earth in the 39th gate. The north node is in the 6th gate. The south node is in the 36th gate. We've got Mercury, and it's at a standstill, or the astrology term is stationed, as it turns retrograde on the 5th, and it's in the 60th gate. Venus is in the 34th gate, with Mars in the 50th gate, and Jupiter is also stationed, or at a standstill, as it turns retrograde on the 7th, and it's in the 6th gate, along with the north node. Saturn is in the 5th gate. Uranus is in the 51st gate, Neptune is in the 37th gate, and Pluto is in the 38th gate. So obviously not every gate activation forms a channel, but this information can be very helpful if you know your own human design chart, because some of these transits will form channels with potentials in your personal body graph. And the neutrino forecast is really just a weather report. No matter what the weather, your individual strategy and authority is the correct choice to have an authentic experience regardless of the program. As Ra Uru Hu said, whatever the weather is going to be, you have your neutrino umbrella. As long as you're experimenting with your strategy and authority, the weather is for your pleasure. And we begin the week with no channel definitions due to the transit field, which we have rarely had this over the last bunch of months. There's been just pretty much constant definition, particularly in this channel of shock initiation that we had for many months in a row. So we're going to be looking at the sun's Ravi Ching line values daily, because 70% of the neutrinos we receive come from the sun. And as Ross said in Living with the Program, the lines of the day, when he was talking about these daily shifts of line values, he said we can always take advantage of the themes of the day. If your strategy and authority doesn't lead you in that direction, you can always notice how the program is affecting others in your environment. So let's get started. On January 3rd, we're going to begin the day with the sun in the third line, the martyr line of the 38. The sun's exalted in the 38-3, and this is alliance. Exalted, the ability to sustain through integration with similar forces, thus ensuring the vitality to persevere, the energy to integrate with others in times of struggle. Third line days, the line of the martyr, we're talking about a trial and error process, bonds made and broken, a system of discovery by figuring out what doesn't work. But then later on the third, the sun then moves into the fourth line. So it's leaving the martyr line, moving into the opportunist line of the 38th hexagram. And this shift happens at 1:52 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, where the sun is exalted in the fourth line of the 38 due to Pluto also being in the 38. And this is described as investigation, analysis, which strengthens opposition. Exalted, the detective who develops, or the insider who accepts a joint opposition whose success is based on trust. The energy to recognize who can be of value in times of struggle. Fourth line days, the opportunist, line, we're moving from the lower hexagram into the upper hexagram, moving from a personal process to a transpersonal process, from an inward perspective to more looking outward, with the themes of friendship, companionship, networking, social interaction, things like that. Then later on the 3rd, the sun then moves into the 5th line of the 38 at 11:56 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so just 4 minutes before midnight on the 3rd. The sun in the 38.5 is described as alienation, a stage in opposition when one is totally isolated. Exalted, the ambition and concentration to endure, the energy to fight stubbornly alone. Detrimented, alienation experienced as painful confinement that by its very nature blinds one to the possibility that there are those at some point who may come to one's aid. The energy for stubbornness that is so strong that it's difficult to recognize that there are others who can help in times of struggle. And 5th line days, the heretical line, as I've said before, this is about projection. The projection always goes positive, then negative. Positive, they could do it, they're the perfect person for it. Then if the person doesn't do it, can't do it, for whatever reason, they don't meet that projection, they don't meet that expectation, that's when they get punished. That's when the heretic gets tied to the stake. So 5th line days are a day of suspicion, also universalization, where something can spread like a virus. Paranoia is associated with the 5th line, although, as I've said before, if they're projecting on you, you're not meeting their expectation, and they are out to punish you, then that is not paranoia. Seduction also being a 5th line theme. Then also on the 3rd, we have Venus moving out of the 34 and into the 9. And we have Pluto moving out of the 38, and it's moving into the 54. So we'll go through each one of these. One of the things that's interesting is Pluto moved into the 54 before the sun moved into the 5th line of the 38. If Pluto had still been in the 38, it would have detrimented the sun in the 5th line. But because Pluto moved into the 54 before the sun got into the 5th line, that's why when I reviewed that, I read both the exaltation and the detriment. So let's talk about Venus. In human design, Venus is very powerful, deeply misunderstood according to Ra. It's about values, morality, natural law, in which we deal with the other and the consequences of the world around us, and what disturbs you on a moral level. Your design and personality Venuses tell us about the moral dilemma that you're going to work with in your life, and that if you don't act with moral clarity, Venus can be unkind in its retribution. And with Venus in the 9th gate of focus, the taming power of the small, the potential can be fulfilled through detailed attention to all pertinent aspects. Venus in the 1st line of the 9 is in the line of sensibility, a balanced and responsible approach to problem solving. Exalted, the ability to avoid frustration through the creation of new forms. The power in focusing to create new forms. Detriment, after hasty and frustrating search, the urge to kick in the door when the key is in your pocket. The power to generate, which will lose its focus. And then Pluto moving from the 38 to the 54, leaving the sun behind in the 38. So Pluto's in the gate of ambition, the Marian Maiden. Interaction in its mundane social context, but also one's mystical and cosmic relationships. And Pluto is exalted in the 1st line of the 54, which is influence, the ability to achieve through secret relationships, anywhere from the private sector to the Satanist. Ambition energized through secret relationships which fuel influence. And Ra talked about Pluto being truth. personal subjective truth that what we need to know as truth in our lives. And Pluto points to the themes of truth and how the whole operates, it being more than the sum of the parts. There's no way that we can control how it's going to operate. Awakenness to the experience of the whole. Does the whole live correctly or not? And Pluto is going to retrograde back into the 38th gate on August 28th of 2016. So I'm sure there's going to be lots of people thinking that this is moving on forever and ever, which will happen at some point, but it isn't on the 3rd of January. Anyway, on the 4th, the sun then moves up into the 6th line of the 38. And this shift happens at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The sun in the 38.6 is misunderstanding, opposition without basis, exalted, eventual crystallization, which clears up misunderstandings, the energy which attracts misunderstanding and stubbornness to face opposition. And the stubbornness to face opposition. Detrimented, recognition that misunderstanding is at the root of opposition, but the insistence that it is the misunderstanding of the oppositional forces, where misunderstanding is at the root of struggle and the energy of stubbornness to insist and maintain one's position. And 6 line days, that we're in the role model line, as I've said before. I like to think about being on the roof of the hexagram, the roof of a building, that we don't look at the building so much. What else is happening around the building? What's going on in the neighborhood? What's down the road? What's on the horizon? The 6 line is looking at what's coming next. And Ra talked about that 6 line days, not to get stuck with your head in the clouds because you end up with something banging into your shins or your kneecaps. It's a day where there's a lack of focus on what's going on around you because folks are looking beyond their immediate environment. And like 3rd line days, there can be certain dangers of not seeing a car coming, not seeing a bill coming, things of that nature. On the 5th, the sun then moves out of the 38 and joins Pluto in the 54. And we have the Earth moving out of the 39. And it moves into the 53. So we've got the Earth in the 53rd gate of beginnings, development as a structured progression that is both steadfast and enduring. And this shift happens at 8:04 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with the sun in the 54th gate of ambition, the Marian Maiden, interaction in its mundane social context, but also one's mystical and cosmic relationships. And the sun is exalted in the first line of the 54 because Pluto is in the 54 as well. And this again is influence, exalted, the ability to achieve through secret relationships, anywhere from the private sector to the Satanist, ambition energized through secret relationships, which fuel interference. And last week we were talking about the progressing towards the Rave New Year. And as we're progressing towards the Rave New Year, the sun in the 54th gate of the Marian Maiden, as the Earth in the 53rd gate of beginnings. This is when we're really beginning the real process of shutting down the old year. We've hit the stage, excuse me, where we are really here to look clearly. Coming from the 38, we were asking, have we found purpose in life or in the previous cycle? The 54 is ambition, transformation, and the 53 is about beginnings and to look forward. And, the questions that will come up are, who are my allies? Who can I work with? Who can I trust and rely on? Have the beings in your life been correct for you? And, of course, as we're starting a new hexagram, we're down first, second, third line, lower trigram, where people are more looking inward, more absorbed in their own process, with the theme of the first line day, the investigator line, being that there's some type of fear or an anxiety that needs to be investigated. So it's a day to study, not to act. It's a day to look into things, not to jump. It's a good day to deal with things you don't understand, can't make sense of, or simply just don't know. On the 6th, the sun then moves into the second line, leaving the investigator line into the hermit line of the 54. This shift happens at 6:08 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The sun in the 54-2 is described as discretion, exalted the wisdom once a relationship is formally recognized to restrain the temptation to take advantage of past informal interactions. The energy of restraint fuels ambition. Detrimented recognition in its formal sense is seen as a license to take advantage of informal knowledge. A lack of loyalty, ambition, energy, which can fuel disloyalty. And second line days, people are waiting for something. They're waiting to be called, particularly what they get called for are their natural talents. People are stuck in their own trip in the lower trigram. Just not a great day to have a party or a big social event because folks would rather not go anywhere under that influence of the hermit. On the 7th, the sun then moves into the third line, moving into the martyr line of the 54th hexagram at 4:13 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The sun is exalted in the 54-3 due to Pluto also being in the 54, and this is covert interaction. Exalted, the ability when stymied in formal relationships to use secret or purely informal channels when it is the only resort. The drive when blocked to use secret means to fuel ambition. And third line days, the martyr, this is about trial and error, bonds made and broken, a system of discovery by figuring out what doesn't work. As I've said before, things can bump into us under that third line energy, so being careful on the roads, be careful of things in your environment, whether it's somebody's arm or a door swinging or something like that. It's a good material day. It's a good day to do business and work on the material plane, but you got to be careful because things could go wrong. Ultimately, there's the possibility of finding discovery when things do go wrong under that third line energy. And then also on the 7th, Mars moves from the 50 to the 28. And so that puts Mars in the gate of the game player, preponderance, the transitoriness of power and influence. And Mars is exalted in the first line of the 28, which is preparation, exalted desire to be effective, manifested in application of energy to detail, the intuition to potentially apply energy to detail. And Ross spoke of Mars being an extraordinary and immature energy resource which lacks refinement and is subject to outbursts. Mars represents the warrior archetype, and by following our strategy and authority, we slowly refine the energy of our design and personality Mars from immaturity to wisdom. On the 8th, the sun then moves into the fourth line of the 54 at 2:17 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where the sun in the 54-4 is described as enlightenment or endarkenment. Here, in one of the most mystical of positions, there is neither an exaltation nor a detriment, for in truth they are the same. Exalted and detrimented read the same. The Alpha and Omega, the end and the beginning. There is no description possible. The fuel for transformation at its purest level. No polarity, no planetary accent. And again, fourth line days in the line of the opportunist. Again, the perspective is shifting from an inward perspective to now looking outward with the themes of friendship, companionship, networking. Fourth line days are great for social interaction. And then also on the 8th, Venus moves out of the 9 and joins Saturn in the 5. And, we just talked about Venus earlier. So we've got Venus. It's in the 5th gate of fixed rhythms, waiting, the fundamental attunement to natural rhythms, waiting as an active state of awareness. Venus is in the first line of the five, which is perseverance. If the captain must, he goes down with the ship. Exalted courage in the face of adversity. The power to maintain one's own rhythm. Detriment, the premature and often disastrous urge to cut one's losses. Weakness in maintaining one's rhythm when challenged. And then on the 9th, the sun then moves into the 5th line of the 54, and this shift happens at 12:21 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The sun's exalted in the 54-5, and it's described as magnanimity, exalted the natural authority and actualizing spirit that in a position of power can have genuine and fruitful relationships with the less advantaged, as long as they're in service and make no demands. The energy for actualization that despite this power fuels fruitful relationships with others, no polarity. 5th line days, again, we talked about the heretic being about projection with the themes of suspicion and universalization, paranoia, seduction, all of those types of themes being represented by that 5th line energy. So no matter what the energies are that are conditioning you during the week, remember this experience is about being a passenger, riding in a vehicle, being driven by the magnetic monopole. So enjoy the scenery, let the vehicle take you where you need to go through using your strategy and authority. Every day is a blessing, no matter what dramas beckon to distract us. We're all here just giving the performance of our lifetime on this world stage. Just take some time to observe the play as well as act your part by remembering you're a spiritual being that's having a human experience. And I want to thank you for checking out New World Birth. The next segment of the weekly neutrino forecast will be on January 10th of 2016. Should be available on the 9th, when we'll continue to look at the influence of the heavenly bodies as they transit the sky and the hexagrams of the I Ching. You can check us out on Facebook, Blogger, or YouTube. And I encourage you to share this information as videos or as text as widely as you choose, and invite you to contact me at newworldbirth@yahoo.com if you have any questions or wish to schedule a reading. And if you've been thinking about getting a reading, please contact me. I would love to provide you a reading during these uncertain times. And just so you know, I am considering raising my rates. They've been the same now for almost 4 years. So if you are interested in getting a reading and you'd like to get them at the current rates before they go up, please contact me sooner rather than later. Anyway, to get a reading from me, you will need to call me in Maine in the USA, or we can connect with Skype. Please contact me. I'd love to provide you a reading during these uncertain times. We're also accepting donations to keep these reports freely available. And again, contact me at New World Birth. It would be a way to find out how to make a donation if you're interested, or getting a reading. Again, it helps us to keep this all going. So anyway, as always, I'm blessed that you've taken the time to connect with my passion for these ancient mysteries and their application to our journey during this incarnation. The light in me honors the light in you. Namaste, in Lakesh, and as Ra would say, love yourself. All my best to you, and look forward to connecting with you in the future, whether it's in a video or with a question or through a reading. Anyway, thank you, and see you soon.